What's going on, guys? Hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. So today I'm going to talk about the real reason Mohnish Pabrai sold Alibaba, right? So there has been a lot of speculation as to the reasons he sold it, and I believe this is the first interview or Q&A session that he has that basically he has directly said the reason for selling, right? So let's have a listen and then we'll discuss a bit.
Sure. Thank you so much for taking my questions, Manish. I'm just wondering, you have invested in other markets, being China. And as we know, in the past a year or two, regulators and the government has, a big role in it. Just wondering if your thesis has changed according to the change in regulations and, regimes change and whatnot, and if you still have the same view of investment in Chinese companies?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would say that's a good example of things getting murky after you make an investment. Because there is no absolute clarity, it's just some murkiness. Probably the best thing to do is to do nothing. It's really important that the sell decisions happen when there is very little ambiguity. So we had made an investment in Alibaba, for example, and it went down a fair amount. Then I noticed after that that Tencent also had gone down a fair amount. What we did is we swapped. I came to the conclusion between those two businesses that Tencent was the better business. I made the swap because we got a tax benefit from tax loss selling. Time will tell if that was the right decision. I think that's okay because we kind of swap one for very similar business, but with somewhat superior economics, I think. But I think that if I had done nothing at all, just kept that position, that's also perfectly fine. And that might be also just fine. So time will tell what happens here. We have to keep in mind what John Templeton says, that we're going to have a high error rate and we should not be trigger happy. So it's really hard to figure out what these businesses look like 10 years from now. That's not so easy to figure out, but there is enough of a case to be made that they could be doing a lot better than today, 10 years from now. And if there's a reasonable possibility of that, then we just want to leave it alone.
Okay, great.
All right, so as we can see that the first reason he sold was tax loss harvesting, and the second reason was that he thought he could have deployed into Tencent, which was a better move. So I think we also have to take a look at what he says, right? So number one, when you want to sell something, right, you have to be very, very, very sure that it's not going to do well, right? Because obviously if you sell something and then it does well and it goes on to do what your thesis stated it would do, then there's a lot of regret from investors, which may lead us to make bad decisions. And second of all, he also said something very important, right? He thinks Tencent is a better decision, but only time will tell, right? And that is true with most investments and things alike, right? So only time will tell. And some people are already rushing to the conclusion that just because he sold instantly, Alibaba is a worse off business or something like that, right? So investors buying or selling does not really change whether the business is good or bad, right? It's just maybe their personal preferences have changed, or maybe their view of certain things have changed, right? But one thing he stated very clearly was he thought Tencent is better value for his money than Alibaba, right? So maybe that is something that we have to take and compare, right? But I also want to talk a bit about me as an investor, right? So I bought in Alibaba at about 91. I think my average price is like 91 something, right? So let's just call it 92, and I'm down 15%, right? So some people might be like, oh, only down 15%, I'm down like 60% or something like that, right? So it's not a contest. Obviously, being down 15%, so some people will be like, how you feel, you could have waited a few weeks and then basically you'll be up, basically save the 15% downside. But in my opinion, in the short term, I tried to use some short-term indicators to time the bottom, right? Because when the Chinese Communist Party basically said that, oh, they're going to loosen up policy, I took that as a signal where they're going to drive liquidity into the markets, right? So overall, not really that much regret. So we'll never be able to pick the exact bottom, right? Once again. So if you're enjoying the video so far, do help me smash up the like button, hit subscribe, and also hit the bell button and press on all, right? So this will really help out the channel. And also watch till the end, right? Because obviously you don't want to miss any important information. So going back to the country itself, Mohnish Pabrai is clearly still bullish on the country, right? Clearly he thinks that the securities in this country is undervalued, right? Because he's been looking at countries like Turkey, I think there is Brazil as well, and then China, right? So he's been looking at all these emerging market countries, and still he finds that China is a good value for his money, right? So that is something we have to take account for, that he is still bullish on China as a country, right? So great to know like thoughts of this like super investors, because he simplifies it down to like, he dumps it down to a very like even layman can understand, right? So sometimes maybe I need to take some pointers from him on how to explain things. But yeah, overall, first we have to note that Mohnish Pabrai is still bullish on China. Second, we have to note that he sold for tax loss harvesting, and I believe he did it like at the same time, right? Selling Alibaba and buying into Tencent, right? Because to him, it's like they are equivalents, or maybe Tencent is a slightly better business or something like that, right? And he also wanted that exposure even after taking the loss, right? So similar thing that Charlie Munger did was like he bought for don't know how many hundreds of thousands of shares, and basically he doubled the position and then he sold the first position, right? So that is also a way that they can tax loss harvest, right? And then third of all is like, be very sure, right? He also said that you'll probably do find just sitting in Alibaba, right? So for people who are like 50% down or something like that, yeah, obviously that is some huge regret, right? But obviously we have to see like in 5 years, if you're continuing to add now or something like that, then you'll probably be okay if your thesis turns out correct, right? So me personally, I am obviously a bit bummed that my thesis in the short term didn't play out, but long-term thesis, I have no worries, right? I'm pretty sure when the next earnings comes and the earnings after that comes, they're still going to smash it out of the park, because expectations are so low for all these Chinese companies, right? Because they're saying that the economy there is collapsed, is in ruins. Basically, they are thinking that China is basically Ukraine, right, getting bombed by Russia, right? So in my opinion, the long-term thesis is still intact, but short-term thesis that the CCP releasing liquidity will probably drive this stock market prices up, obviously is wrong, right? Because clearly we can see the Fed has a bigger impact than the CCP, right? But last thing to note is that I am slightly unhappy because I maxed out my position too fast, right? Maybe because if I still had a little bit of a allocation, I can still be adding at these even lower prices, right? So maybe that is a learning lesson for me for my position sizing. So I might decide to increase because I still have cash, but I have allocated that cash for other markets or other stocks, right? So I might change my mind, decide I can add a 5%. Let's say if it goes to 50 Hong Kong dollars or something like that, I might change my mind, right? But as of now, I'm just sitting still, holding steady, and like Monish's advice, right? Just sometimes the best thing to do is nothing, right? So yeah, with that being said, have a fantastic day ahead and peace out.